Welcome to the first Borinqueneers Historical Research Team podcast. It is a podcast that will celebrate and honor the legacy of the 65th Infantry Regiment, Borinqueneers. I am your host, Jorge Mercado. Thank you for tuning in. Hello folks, the intent of this new project is quite simple. It's to stand on common ground with the Borinqueneer community so we together could foster further growth and sustain the legacy of the 65th. I hope you enjoyed the introduction to this episode. What you actually saw was actual footage from the 1950 Chosin Reservoir battles and the Hungnam evacuation. I further hope that your eyes was able to take away the sheer danger by which the Chinese just wanted to completely render destruction unto the American forces and calling out for their blood. These two events would not only change the course of American military policy on a global scale, but became the high water mark for when the 65th cemented their legacy. I'm going to dive into this era. You make sure you stay to the end of this episode. I am not a military historian. I am only a student of the Korean War. And it is for this reason why, with dedicated time, research, and effort, my goal has only been to try to keep the torch of this era lit on the social media platform. So in this sense, honoring any unit from this era brings it all back to all those who served during the forgotten war. You will hear me state HRT throughout the program. It's short for Historical Research Team. And before I proceed with the historical components of this program, I would like to express that for the past few years, I've been the admin for our Borinqueneers Committee's Facebook page. I've generated all the birthday posts, holidays, and sadly, the postings of when one of our heroes passes away. And I would like to take a special moment and thank all of the family members that have ever entrusted our CEO, Sam Rodriguez, and myself with keeping the memory, love, and legacy of their heroes alive. Our committee is dedicated and committed to honoring all veterans with the utmost respect. If I may, I would like to slow down the monologue so I could share with the community some important points that I would like to express. There are various components that go into these postings, from outlining stories and writing their script while standing in line with the composition, symmetry, and the color scheme creativity of it all, hoping to generate the best value product for the viewer. This work has required the purchases of apps and softwares throughout the years. It is an expense that I've taken out of my own pocket with my volunteer service. My volunteer service for the Borinqueneers is completely out of genuine love. For those who know me, they know how much this means to me. I never had money associated in mind with this labor, and sure, it's been suggested to me by a few that I should be financially compensated, but I've always pushed back. Now here's a funny story related to this topic. One time, I received a $100 check in the mail, and I was completely shocked because it came from a least unexpected source. It was a Borinqueneer that I located through the work that I do with my research. I have also participated with others in having this Borinqueneers' service and sacrifice recognized. For those who have followed me throughout the years, you know who he is. It is Borinqueneer Raymond H. Medina. Make a long story short, I called him, asked why he sent the $100 check, that what I do is out of my love for him and his brothers. And he responded by saying that that's the least that he could do with all the hard work that I've done, and also bringing a sense of joy into his life since his wife's passing. I thanked him dearly, paid the $100 forward, did not keep the check. And so I share this story because during my 6 years of HRT volunteer service, if you have ever enjoyed my work and it has brought a sense of sentimental value into your life, a sense of looking forward towards the next Borinqueneers post, or the work has motivated or educated you in any fashion, but more importantly, if it has ever moved your heart, I am open for the first time on receiving any gift donations that again comes only from your heart. Any gift donations from you will be geared towards an exchange of value. The value of purpose, love, and support, hoping we can further add more value to others with inspiration and excitement for our Borinqueneers. The merit of my work goes beyond the social media postings. It goes right at the heart of a love story between soldiers and the very island and people they represented on the battlefield. Therefore, it is in the service of this agenda to push forward and further the Borinqueneer story with your help. I believe my collective work speaks for itself. Anything I do in honoring the 65th, I always put my best foot forward in staying true to the golden standards of ethics, honesty, and integrity. The writing, visual storytelling, videos, and image graphic designs all fall under the discipline of content creator, which is basically the creation of relatable and interesting data to an audience on a consistent basis. Therefore, I consider myself a Borinqueneer content creator. And with that, I extend with open arms to anyone who wants to join me in unity with this noble cause. And if you can't donate due to financial hardship, your heartfelt blessings, your love, and your spiritual support will suffice. There's no price tag on that. What I'm driving at is basically the funds will go into getting new equipment and applications to bring you better state-of-the-art productions on the Borinqueneers. I am providing links to sites to where you can donate if you decide to. For those of you who can donate, watch the rest of this episode to see if it's worth the cost. And I am also open to anyone who might be interested in becoming a producer to this show. During the Korean War, among the many bloody boot prints on the snowfields of death, natives from a small island gave rise to prominence in the dead of night and into the pages of American history. From the Far East, their military service became embedded in the consciousness of Puerto Rico, leaving an indelible mark of pride and glory among its people. There are many chapters during the 3-year war. In one of these chapters, tales of epic heroism amidst the skirts of frozen battlefields became a record of immortals as those written at Valley Forge and Gettysburg. Under the skies of elemental surprise, American forces courageously fought against crushing odds of survival during the Chosin Reservoir battles against an enemy that outnumbered them in massive strength. What would soon follow became one of the most epic humanitarian operation crises in global military history, known as the Miracle of Christmas. The Borinqueneers, with their reign of selfless service, provided protection as many made it to safety aboard ships at the Hungnam evacuation. In battle and keeping the enemy at bay, the 65th exemplified the very spirit and strength of their motto, honor and fidelity. There are many that hold a fundamental desire to honor the 65th. It is the central interest for many of you when it comes to the Borinqueneer story, and it is such passion that unites us as a community. Now, having said that, my presentation is built upon some of my previous HRT postings throughout the years, which is not only instrumental for review and conversation, but possible future lectures as well. A lot of this material is common knowledge, so the aim and objective is to put things in a new perspective and allow the visual narrative along with the research speak for itself, while providing a better understanding on the critical role the Borinqueneers played during these two historical events of the Chosin and Hungnam in late 1950. There are many chapters to the Borinqueneers story during the Korean War, but today my focus is only on these two operations that they served in. To better understand the build-up to these two events, I will interview a Korean War historian where he will go into great historical details regarding the many basket of challenges that ranged from intelligence oversight, clash of egos among those in power, and facts that are often overlooked in a future episode. Let's dive into the 65th involvement within the broader American context of this story. Before and at the start of the Korean War, it is well known that there was not much confidence in the 65th by the upper brass, and the Borinqueneers' beloved commander, William W. Harris, made sure to prove this notion wrong, and he proudly did. During the frozen Chosin and Hungnam evac, the 65th solidified their worth as a regiment and made Colonel Harris very proud of leading Puerto Rican soldiers into battle. As a matter of fact, he wrote in his book describing the 65th as, "The Puerto Rican faced hordes of Chinese, eyeball to eyeball, and did not flinch, not even one eyelash. There is no question in my mind that before the end of that period, the Puerto Ricans had demonstrated to even the most skeptical of their critics that they were a force to be reckoned with. They were not easily pushed around, even when heavily outnumbered." You would find that in chapter 6, page 114 in his book. Another point that I need to make to respectfully remind the audience that aside from the 65th, there were other units that fought and kept the enemy back, as many made it to safety. I will be covering some of these missions and timelines in upcoming episodes. We're going to bring it back to the 65th. Up to this point in the war, in November of 1950, Borinqueneers were slowly making headway with the American news press, with recognition as they engaged in guerrilla warfare, pushing the enemy back and into retreat. In addition, Puerto Rican press was also covering the 65th as well, but it wasn't until after the Chosin battles the 65th finally engaged in all-out conventional warfare against the Chinese. Then we start seeing more of the American press praising the 65th, including the upper brass. In short, the 65th, while attacking from a defensive position with the assistance from air and naval support, kept the Chinese at bay. In many respects, there was a vast expanse of coverage on the 65th in the press, and so I commenced with an HRT post I did in 2020 to illustrate this point here as well. Here I present to you a well-circulated news press image of the 65th. It was titled, "Riflemen Protect Hungnam Perimeter," and it reads, "Puerto Rican riflemen of the U.S. 3rd Division guard the lowlands from their positions along a narrow-gauge railway after withdrawing from contact with Chinese Red troops in Oru." To give you a geographical sense of the Borinqueneers' position in this photo, I have encircled in red their position in the area of Oru, which is about 15 miles from the Hungnam port, which is encircled in green. They were holding the defense line against the incoming Chinese forces. I would like to direct your attention to this short clip that can easily be a companion piece to support the respect and recognition given to the Borinqueneers for their part during this operation. A soldier from the 7th Division is on record as per the Journal Times, February 2nd, 1951, where it reads, he credited the 65th Regiment of the 3rd Army with holding the UN lines, while the last units of other divisions were loaded on ships. He called the Hungnam operation a pretty good evacuation. I will now display some more images that are very familiar within our community that showcases our heroes coming back from fighting the enemy, as they provided protection while thousands of troops, materials, and civilians made it to safety. Presented to you here is a fleeting glimpse of two Borinqueneers coming back from battle making media coverage. It reads as follows. These two Puerto Rican GI head for the beach at Hungnam on the last day of the withdrawal. I want you to feast your eyes on this gripping image of Corporal Julio Guzman on the left and Master Sergeant Lupercio Ortiz. This image feels to me as that, at its best, speaks volumes through the lens of patriotism defined through the military service of the Puerto Rican soldier that holds true to this very day. The piece further reads, the pair made up a rearguard machine gun team which fought to the end in the bitter cold hills above Hungnam. Let me say that again. Fought to the end in the bitter cold hill. Just to think these tropical soldiers fought in icy climatic conditions and still carried out with readiness and effectiveness the mission at hand in battle deserves some respect. Furthermore, defending from the cold hills above Hungnam did give the Borinqueneers the tactical advantage in engagement, which brings me to this next image of Borinqueneers high on a hill in the bitter cold once again, safeguarding the passage of the Marines returning from their slugfest against the Chinese at Chosin, dated December 18, 1950. Here's another illustration highlighting our Borinqueneers in the foreground coming back from keeping the Chinese at bay. It reads, out of the flaming hills to Hungnam, using ox-drawn carts to carry their machine guns and equipment, men of the 65th Regiment, 3rd Division, moved into the Hungnam perimeter from their final position in the hill. In the distance, the huge columns of smoke rising are actually the villages and equipment destroyed by the 65th, which also became a form of smoke screening tactic aiding a delayed defense by the 65th. Now, the Chosin battle lasted for 17 brutal days, from November 27th to December 13th. That very last day of battle, Borinqueneers played a major role regarding the famous outbreak. Borinqueneer Colonel Harris wrote in his book regarding this last day and the 65th in action, describing it as, by the 13th of the month, the Marine Division and the entire covering force had withdrawn within the protective lines of our defense. And once more, we dug our heels in for the next attack. The battle raged all day on the 13th and throughout the night and morning of the 14th. This engagement was one of many critical moments when the 65th cemented their legacy. It is also why I mentioned earlier that in the dead of night, they rose to prominence. It was referring to this particular battle. Let's also bear in mind the Chinese, with their mission of total destruction with massive numbers, forced the American defense line to shrink closer to the coast. By the 16th of December, as all American forces fighting backwards, elements from the 65th found themselves in a tight situation but quickly adapted and overcame, with once again assistance from air and naval support. It was reported in another article titled UN Shrinks Defense Line that Captain Owen Rogan from a different unit witnessed and stated that the 65th was overrun by the Chinese and pushed back from the 10th Corps defense line, but the 65th fought their way back to their position with help from tanks and artillery as the Puerto Ricans kept holding the line while others withdrew into the sea. There were 3 phases of withdrawal. Phase 1, the defense line, came within 4 miles of the port. The whole 1st Marine Division by this time that fought at Chosin were loaded on ships on December 15, 1950, while the 3rd Division guarded the left flank and the 7th Division guarded the right flank of the defense line. 7 days later, during Phase 2, the 7th Division was evacuated on December 22, 1950. The final defense line was held by the 3rd Division, which consisted of the 65th, 7th, and 15th Regiments, which came within 2 miles of the coast. At one point, the 65th became the rear guard, leading them to be the last to be evacuated at the port. Allow me to backtrack a bit here for a moment and pick up on a previous image that I showcased. As the deadly forces were slowly storming upon the port, the Borinqueneers were blasting tactical targeted positions in order to delay the incoming Red offense so others could escape. One of the targets was a bridge which made the news coverage. Here is that very bridge making the papers as it reads. A demolition charge set by Puerto Rican troops of the U.S. 3rd Division yesterday blew up a bridge between Ham Hong and Oro as GIs defending the outside rim of the shrinking Allied beachhead. To further complement this coverage, here is the image of Master Sergeant Celsa Melendez and Corporal Andelmo Irizarry laying a demolition charge on a bridge that's over the Songchong River near Oro. Again, more evidence covered in the papers. Reading, Puerto Rican troops attached to the 3rd Division dynamited 3 spans of a 500-foot concrete bridge over the Songchong River after Oro was abandoned. I want you to gaze upon this layout where the demolition occurred. Oro is encircled in red, and right below it, between the 2 red arrows, is the bridge going over the Songchong River. The bridge location, I would say, is less than 10 miles from the port where the masses are evacuating, circled in green. In addition to the bridge, the 65th also blasted a railroad bridge and 2 other spans on the outer defense perimeter shown here. Again, the mission was to delay the advancing communists. Here is Sergeant Carrera from the 65th Heavy Mortar Company. He and his captain, Eugene D. Freeman, commander of the company, were in charge with destroying Allied ammunition and equipment that had been left abandoned on the Hungnam beach. Cast your eyes on this 2021 HRT post I did, which is quite telling. To have come across this image here resonates deeply with me simply because it invokes a sense of pride regarding our heroes, and maybe even more surreal is the fact that back in the 50s they blasted the title Puerto Rican Hero among last to leave Hungnam, especially during the political social climate of the times. Such positive coverage of the 65th did not only move the heart of their island, but won the American public by means of recognizing these men as professional, patriotic soldiers. I will finally close out with this last HRT post I did, where Congressman Frank T. Ball praised the 65th before the House in 1951, which actually led him to being invited to attend a convention in Puerto Rico to speak. This is from an actual newspaper clip where it reads, "The convention has been dedicated to the Puerto Rican 65th Infantry Regiment, which gained distinction last winter during the retreat from the Chosin Reservoir area in North Korea." Aside from the congressman respecting the 65th service, he also expressed to the House that he hoped that the 65th record in Korea would offset the attempt assassination of President Truman by Puerto Rican nationalists, because it had cast a shadow over the people of Puerto Rico in the minds of many Americans. Look, whatever populates your view pertaining to Puerto Rican history as a whole, I feel that it is imperative for it to be revisited, and for this reason, I will include many interesting topics in future episodes that will be open for further discussion. In the end, it would take a collaborative effort from the U.S. Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, and Merchant Marines to carry out one of the greatest escapes and humanitarian feats ever carried in military history, where again, more than 100,000 military personnel and North Korean refugees were safely evacuated in the famous 1950 the Hungnam evacuation. Folks, it's apparent that China assumed the status of world power after the Korean War, and today represents a threat to the United States. Should have we let General Douglas MacArthur nuke North Korea and part of China like he intended? He never received presidential orders from Harry S. Truman for such deployment of destruction. We will visit this topic in future episodes as well. And so for this reason, when revisiting this critical period in American history that to an extent has carried over to our current geopolitical challenges, it's fair to indicate that the Borinqueneers are embedded in these history pages that at last has led to their recognition and respect after so many years. I really hope that you can see the ever-advancing scope from an educational, historical standpoint this new project can evolve into. My intent, once again, is simply trying to undertake the task of disseminating a conducive avenue from which the Borinqueneers story can connect to other branches of history with an academic, social, and cultural interdisciplinary approach. My mission is to establish a support network that can better facilitate this noble agenda. In closing, from my heart to yours, what appears to be promising will turn out to be as such and much more, making it all worthwhile to donate and support this cause in the spirit of honor and fidelity. Thank you for watching.